Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Make sure you download the app and use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. Happy Monday to all the Cubs fans out there, all of our diehards out there who've signed up to be CHGO diehards. We appreciate it. If you haven't, check it out. Go to allchgo.com. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube page, make sure you do that because it's the best way to get involved with what we're doing. We can hang out and do these live shows together. You can get involved in the chat. Make sure you do the 5-star reviews and the likes and the thumbs up and all those things. Look at the Monday vibes going here. Cody Del Mendo, top left corner, doing his Shady Rays, blades, reflector glasses right at you. And Ryan Herrera is in the building. And later we will also have one Jared Willis joining us on the podcast coming up in just a little bit. We'll also hear from Ryan's interview with Trey Mancini out in Arizona. So we're looking forward to that. Yeah. But fellas, how you doing on Monday? I mean, it's cloudy out, but look at Cody. He's spring break vibes. It's like he's back on spring break.
Listen, I got to pull the scooter out this weekend, so yeah, it feels like spring break.
Greg says return of the Macho Man. Those do look like Macho Man sunglasses a little bit. For sure. That's a very good call.
Man. What a nice day out. It was raining actually a couple hours ago. Sounded pretty bad, and now the sun's out. I understand why Cody brought out the Macho Man Shady Rays. It's that kind of day.
Yeah.
Feels like baseball's actually almost here.
45 degrees both Saturday and Sunday. Was able to ride the scooter to the gym, and I was jamming out to Morgan Wallen's new album on the ride there and back. And it's just summer vibes, man. I'm ready. I need like May and June to get here, like air to breathe.
It's not. I don't think it's sunny here in Arlington Heights, but it might be. It's been in and out. It was kind of really raining hard this morning, and last night it was monster thunderstorms. But anyways, I tell you what else happened over the weekend. Well, I guess you call it Friday as the weekend. How about the 7-pitcher no-hitter for the Cubs, the first in spring training since 2017? And I'll tell you my favorite part of it: 2 hours and 15 minutes. Huh? Wow. If we can get some 2-hour and 15-minute games this year, I am all about it.
My favorite part was when I started talking myself into 90 wins during that.
Because the pitching is rolling, right? The 2 games, right? The next game was 9 shutout innings. I don't remember how many hits, but the pitching is rolling. I agree with you, Stuckey. The shorter games, I think we've talked about that enough that everyone knows where we land on that. I don't remember where I saw it on Twitter earlier today, but someone looked at the average length of games from every year, and it wasn't until 2012 or something like that games even started lasting for 3 hours or more.
Yeah,
if we can get the average game time back to 240, we'll take it, man.
I'd take 230s. What I'd take 230, but if you're telling me 215, even once a week, amen to that.
I think that those pitcher duels will be more like that for sure. Because I mean, the Cubs threw a combined no hitter in spring training, so you think about. I think the Cubs potentially could be doing that a lot. Not saying one guy's going to throw a no hitter, or anything like that, but with the way that their pitching has looked so far this spring, man, I could envision a lot of 2.5, 2 hour, 15-minute ball games if they're going to pitch like they have over the last 5. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen pitchers saying so far that they believe the new rules, specifically the pitch clock, probably do favor the pitchers. And if the Cubs are building their foundation of the next great Cubs team around pitching, that seems like a pretty good move so far. I mean, obviously the shift is going to, the lack of a shift is going to change things a little bit, but I think it does allow the pitcher to sort of dictate the game a little bit more just because they know the clock's coming and the batter's got to get in there. So we'll see. But I like the way the pitching looks. Assad, Boxberger, Alzolay, Estrada. Cam Sanders has been pretty good so far.
His dad's been real excited about it on Twitter.
Yeah, he's opened some eyes, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of it's some of these young guys that you've heard, right? I remember just last year, hearing that it is actually before Jeremiah Estrada came up, but it was like him, Cam Sanders, and Ben Leeper were like 3 names to keep an eye on from like that AAA bullpen depth. And Jeremiah Estrada is the only one that ended up making it to the major leagues last year, but now Cam Sanders is doing well, and just some of these other arms that you've heard about, and then are getting in these games and are actually kind of impressing. And yeah, it's spring training, and Cactus League isn't probably it may make or break a couple things, but it's not like one guy's going to rise so much based on how he pitches in spring training. But if these guys are pitching well, that bodes well for if they don't start the season on the major league roster. They're going to be right there in AAA. They're pitching well going into the year. And, when injuries inevitably happen, which they will, these guys are ready to go and come up and contribute. So obviously it's, again, Cactus League is Cactus League, but it's so much better to see guys pitching well, obviously, than to not be pitching well. So
right. I mean, we could sit here and complain about Drew Smiley if that's going to make everyone feel
that's
better.
Later.
Yeah, right. But so for guys like Cam Sanders, some of these young guys you want to seeing them do well is always a good sign going into, you still got three weeks left in spring training, but it's always a good sign to see him doing well right now.
Yeah, and Ryan tweeted out the info from the Cubs today saying, the roster's down to 66. So some guys were reassigned to minor league camp. Braylon Marquez was one of those. That's obviously another name we keep hearing about, and there's been injury problems. My guy, Esteban Quiros, who won the game the other day, sent down to minor league camp. So that was disappointing. I thought he was, most likely our everyday third baseman. But anyways, I don't think there's anybody surprising on that list. There's some promising names on that list. They're just not ready to be at major league camp the whole camp, and they're not ready to be major leaguers just yet. But guys that could help the franchise, even at some point this season, yes, there are guys on that list.
We got a little glimpse of Jared Young last year, and
right.
I think at this point he seems more like a depth piece, minor league depth piece. And you need guys like that because of injuries and stuff. But other than that, like the rest of those guys, we talk about Marquez and the injury history and stuff. I just don't know. I mean, he hasn't even pitched in a game. So, when he goes to minor league camp, hopefully he can get out there and show us if he's at least healthy, because we just don't know. You know what I mean? So that will be interesting.
Yeah, I guess in that list, if I were to say I'm surprised by anyone, it would be Darius Hill.
Yeah.
He had a really good year in AAA last year. I don't remember exactly how many games, but I want to say the majority of his at-bats came at AAA last season, and he played pretty well. And then, was that yesterday? He was part of that, rally, that game-winning rally in the top of the 9th for the Cubs. So he was a guy. He's a guy that also feels like more like depth right now. But with obviously the potential that Seiya Suzuki will not be ready to start the season at, he will probably start the season on the IL. You're going to need a lot more outfield depth. So Darius Hill, even though he's now been reassigned to minor league camp, is still someone I'd keep my eye on as, okay, this guy played really well at AAA. If he continues that into the season, is playing very well, is he another guy that, he's not on the 40-man, but could he find his way onto the big league roster at some point this year? I think just the way he performed last season, if he can keep that up, like that's a name to keep an eye on, because he seems like a good depth piece at the least. And I don't remember exactly what round he was picked in a few years back, but it was pretty low. So he's kind of another one of those little surprise, nice stories to see. And then just, of course, see where he can kind of go from there.
The Godfather, Michael Collada, likes what he's seen from Dansby Swanson so far. Look at the positivity on a Monday right there.
Wow.
We said Cam Sanders, like, he has looked really good. And he's a guy we talked about when we were trying to figure out who's going to be protected for the Rule 5 draft. It's so it just shows that, you can put guys over a line or behind the line, but eventually it starts to play out the way it's supposed to play out. I think he's got a shot to contribute to the major league roster this season. It'll be interesting to see how much longer this spring training run goes for him. And same thing with guys like David Bodie, guys who've had lots of major league time. Bodie's had a good spring so far.
Mhm.
Then there's no, you can't knock what he's done.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means he's part of this team. I don't know if that means he's part of another team, but he's certainly not hurting himself this spring. Like he's, as far as guys around baseball, if you had to pick one guy in the Cubs who's done well for himself this spring, David Bodie's got to be on that list. We may have written him off, some of us, but and I'm not saying he's an all-star player at the major league level, but he's showing that he can play at the major league level and help a team. Whether that's going to be the Cubs or not, I don't know. But his stock is, we'll do stock up, stock down later. He's not on that list, but his stock has obviously been up all spring.
Yeah. I mean, saw Brendan Rodgers for the Rockies out. And that one makes more sense than the Dodgers that we were talking about last week.
He's a Colorado guy, isn't he, Bodie? I want to say he is a Colorado guy.
Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, Ryan. Let's just assume that he is.
I want to say he is.
Well, let's say he's from Golden, Colorado. Golden, Colorado. I don't know if that's true or not. But let's just say Highlands Ranch, maybe.
That said, though, on a more serious basis, he is coming into spring like healthy. Remember last year he was hurt to start the year, didn't even come back to what was it, July, August, somewhere around there, after sustaining a pretty serious injury. So, and I know before that injury, it's not like he was, like opening our eyes or anything. I think we all know what David Bote is, and he's just a very solid, versatile player, can play all across the infield. I think that brings value for some teams. But with how many infielders the Cubs have, they can afford to move him if they wanted to. So I am intrigued to see what happens with him. It's not like I'm not rooting for him or don't want him to be on the Cubs. It's just the fact of the matter. They have a lot of infielders, and they're going to have to make a cut like we've been talking about the last few weeks. So I'm glad I'm not the one making the decision. I genuinely don't know how I'm going to feel when the Cubs do make this cut or trade or whatever, because I don't know who they're going to trade. That there's 3 or 4 different scenarios they could make, that could be it. So
Longmont, Colorado is what Rich says for David Bote. So he is
there we go.
He is a Colorado guy. Jameson Taillon, by the way, guys, we looked at Taillon, and was it the home run he gave up, but he still had a pretty good start, and he only threw the one sweeping slider. He flat out shoved this weekend. I don't want to overreact to spring training outings because guys are working on all kinds of stuff, but he's looked great too. He looks like exactly the guy you want to have. And by the way, I think Jared is ready to go. Is Jared here?
No. Seems like he's here. But speaking of that sweeping slider, me and Brendan Friday, our story on Taillon's sweeping slider came out. So if you haven't looked at it, go to allchgo.com. It's up there. A lot of graphs from Brendan. If you like that kind of stuff, it's a lot of graphs, but we got some good stuff from back when I was out in Mesa. So I highly recommend checking that out.
I mean, when you're getting put on Pitching Ninja in spring training, I think that's all I really got to say about Jameson Taillon right now. It's kind of a big deal. There's your Dell Metrics outlook.
Kind of.
Jared's here to up the intellect of this podcast because he's got books behind him, many bound books.
Yes, my apartment smells of rich mahogany. I picked a spot to make it look like, this is all just for appearances. These aren't even my books.
It's one of those fake backgrounds, isn't it? It's not even.
Right.
It's not even where you're at. It's just
those are they're the fake books that it's just the binding, but there's actually nothing there. So it looks good. But.
Jared, what have you thought of the pitching so far? I mean, I feel like obviously the no-hitter is nice, but so far a lot of guys have lived up to the hype in spring training. Killian's had some good outings. Taillon's had some good outings. We get Wesneski going again today at the top of the hour at 2:00, and I'd be interested to see what he can do. I saw that Carter Hawkins was on the Score and was talking specifically about Wesneski because, everybody wants to know, is he going to make the roster? And he said, that's going to be difficult, just like Morel's going to be a difficult decision. But if he can help the team and there aren't, I've tried to see how he phrased it. If there aren't things that impact his development, then yeah, they'd love to have him on the roster. But that to me, those are two of the biggest and most interesting decisions that are left this spring. So,
yeah, I think Wisniewski is probably the most. That's the decision I think we're all probably watching the most closely for sure. But yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised with how Killian pitched the other day, and just in general, the way that the staff is looking is encouraging for what might happen with the season, because we saw in the second half of 2022 how much different this team looked when the pitching was there. Because we all kind of know it. That's a big part of why they got off to such a slow start last season, because they weren't getting the starting pitching that they kind of thought that they were going to. And so, when you have Taillon is looking, really good. But yeah, some of these young guys, because those are the guys who, when injuries come, when, inevitably you're going to need somebody to come up and fill in for you in some kind of a way. It's going to be the guys like Wisniewski and Killian that can make the biggest difference for you. So I think that's been one of the most exciting things for me to see this spring, because I think it bodes well for maybe more than just an interesting season, but dare I say a competitive season.
Yeah.
By the way, did you guys see Jared's new thing on social media? What's it called? The Smoke?
Straight Smoke.
Straight Smoke.
Straight
Yes,
Smoke. What a great name.
You got the
Just
cigar. Yeah.
An excuse for me to smoke another cigar and talk some baseball. But yeah, they're all it's all going to be on the CHGO YouTube.
Very nice. And like somebody taught you editing. I noticed there were some fast edits. It was hip and everything the kids want. It had vibes. It had stogie, baseball.
I gotta give a shout out to Casey, our social media superstar, because I basically recorded that and just like gave her the raw footage and was like, here, make it look good. And she did it. So
so you old guyed it. You did the old guy version, and then she made it young.
Exactly. I fumbled around with my phone in the backyard and got it recorded and said, okay, Casey, work your magic on
it. Real quick, Barbara's been wanting us to touch a little bit more on the no-hitter than we did, specifically with Justin Steele. But he started that game on Friday. 2 perfect innings. I want to say it was like 18 pitches, something like that, to get through it. And people had some concerns when he got scratched from his first start with I think it was arm fatigue, was the word out of Mesa. That that's it was obviously just like a small spring training precautionary thing. He made the start Friday and looked great. Again, you don't want to get too worked up either way. You don't want to get too high or low on a spring training start, but that is a good first outing from Justin Steele, especially if you consider the fact that he's probably out there working on specific things versus just throwing his entire pitch mix and really game planning. So great start. But then you also look at who else threw in that game, right? Like Javier Assad had the next 2 innings after him, Brad Boxberger, Adbert Alzolay, Jeremiah Estrada, Cam Sanders, and Nick Birdie was the guy that finished it off. But those are all potentially guys that will be up contributing to this team at some point this season. Like Assad, he may end up getting part of his time at that multi-inning reliever role, right? He may not come up as a starter specifically. He may, be needed out of the bullpen at some point for multiple innings. So it's all a bunch of guys that you want to see succeed, because they probably will at some point pitch for the Cubs this season. So again, as I said earlier, it's just like good signs that all of them had good days. And, a no-hitter spring training is a cool thing, because especially when you consider that Padres lineup is a really good lineup. It's projected to be one of the best in baseball. So to not allow a hit to any of them at any point during that game, like that's something to put your cap on and kind of take that through the rest of spring training.
Also, not everybody played though.
Yeah,
not everybody played.
Wasn't in there. Soto wasn't in there. I'm not saying it wasn't a nice accomplishment for everybody, but it wasn't like the everyday Padres lineup.
What I take away from it is the fact that we know that it's spring training, so those guys are out there working on certain pitches and stuff like that. So they were able to do that while also not giving up a hit. That's probably the only thing that I take away from it as like something to like get excited about or react to? Because, like, again, we can talk about Drew Smyly and how he's kind of struggled his 2 appearances, but are we getting worried about him? I personally am not, because he's a veteran and we know that they're out there working on whatever they're doing. And I know he's openly said that the pitch clock is something that he is adjusting to right now. So, like, again, that's kind of my back and forth with reacting to the great things that we've seen and some of the bad as well. So,
well, and that's what Cody, I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth, because I think, like, what you're seeing happen with Drew Smyly is probably more typical at this phase of spring training for pitchers, where they're still trying to get the feel for their pitches. They're working on stuff. Their pitchers are always going to look way less polished these first couple weeks in spring training. So, yeah, Smyly, I'm not worried about at all, especially because he's a veteran. I think I'm confident he's going to get that figured out. But that's what, with that no-hitter, that surprised me the most was just that you would have pitchers who were looking that sharp on, at this early date in spring training. We're only a handful of games in, and you don't really see that very often at all.
Right. The other reason I'm not worried about Drew Smyly is because of that's where the depth on the team is. Carter Hawkins in that interview with The Score was like, knock on wood, we have depth. I don't want to talk about it with Wesneski, but that's true. If Smyly were to struggle early on in the season, you have people that can take that start, whether it's Sampson, Assad, Wesneski, maybe that guy's Killian. Like, there are plenty of guys that can take the ball if Drew Smyly is trying to figure something out and has to take a break to figure it out. Now, it's way too soon to think that that's even possible. It's been a couple starts, and it's literally been like 4 innings, 5 runs. It's too early, but nevertheless, seems to be the strength of the team moving forward. We do want to let you know that Trey Mancini interview with Ryan is coming up here in a second. But first, I want to tell you about the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program that's committed to helping families and businesses in the communities we serve save money and energy. ComEd offers free facility assessments that can help find energy-saving opportunities, whether it's lighting, HVAC systems, commercial kitchen equipment, or industrial processes. An authorized engineer will work with you to develop a detailed assessment plan specific to your goals and needs. They can be done in person or virtually and last about 2 hours. Then within 3 to 4 weeks, customers receive a report. That report will detail energy efficiency projects that they can start working on immediately. Each recommendation includes an estimated energy savings, project cost, potential incentives, and simple payback. So don't wait. Get started saving money and energy today. For energy-saving tips and to schedule your free facility assessment, go to ComEd.com/poweringbiz. Ready to sign up for a facility assessment? Call them at 1-855-433-2700 during normal business hours to speak with a ComEd Energy Efficiency Program representative. You can email them at businessee@comed.com or request an assessment online on their website, comed.com/facility assessment.
Guys, I don't know about you. There's three great times of the year. Opening day,
okay,
the start of the NFL season, and March Madness. Yep. Those are the 3 best times of the year, especially on DraftKings Sportsbook. I mean, I am like deep into college basketball right now. I went 11-8 betting college basketball this weekend. Could have been better, but whatever. Take the wins when you can. Did it all on DraftKings Sportsbook, the official betting partner of CHGO and All City. The Big Ten tournament, it starts on Wednesday. I'll be there Thursday. It's going to be a lot of fun, so I won't be on CHGO Cubs Thursday, but me and Sean Anderson from CHGO White Sox and CHGO Bets Daily will be at the Big Ten tournament on Thursday. It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a lot of fun. And then just Selection Sunday is on Sunday, this coming Sunday. So, yeah, there's a lot of – it's just going to be so much to bet on related to March Madness. Obviously, with opening day coming up, I already bet the Cubs to win the division. I bet the Cubs to make the playoffs because I'm a homer and I can't help myself. But they also have a lot of great, other props. And Sean talked about home run total props. Stucky, your guy Schwarber, over under this year's 37.5. I feel like you slammed the over on it again after what he did.
Yeah, I got to go over.
Yeah.
For my birthday, they sent me. I think I got like a $5 bet I get to place. I have to check
there
that
you
out.
go.
A
See?
bonus bet. I have to check that out.
If your
That might be
birthday
it. That
is
might be the
coming
bonus
up,
bet.
wow. Man.
Sure.
So yeah, and then we got NBA no sweat same game parlays, all kinds of great stuff. So download the app now and sign up with code CHGO. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, with code CHGO. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. And to finish that off, it is big of me that I have not blocked or muted Greg Braggs, noted Purdue fan, on Twitter. It is very big of me that I have not done that. Very big of me. So
props. I respect that. I gotta say, I feel like March is a highly underrated month.
Yes.
People sleep on how good March is. There's a lot of good stuff.
St. Patrick's Day weekend is like one of the biggest holiday weekends in Chicago. Like
spring break for those that get it, right?
Yeah.
Spring break. You get St. Patrick's Day, you get March Madness. If you're like me, even springing ahead, when you turn the clocks up ahead, I like that because I say give me that extra daylight at the end of the day.
Yeah.
There's a lot to like.
I still don't get daylight savings time. Like I don't like it.
Either.
I think it's unnecessary, but that's just me.
I'm not a fan. Not a fan of it. Just leave the clocks alone. Just leave them
Doesn't make
alone.
sense.
I hate it getting dark at 5 p.m. Like,
yes,
we could remove that. Like, that'd be great.
So what we need to do is stop what happens in November when we set the clocks back. If we'd stop doing that, everything would be okay.
Seasonal depression's a real thing, man. And moving those clocks back, I think is the main thing. If it's cold outside, like it's gonna be, like, at least let it get dark at 6 instead of 5. I feel like that's at least a little bit better.
Sure.
Exactly.
Cody treats his seasonal depression with shoes.
Yeah.
Not Zoloft.
Goose Island.
Goose Island and shoes.
Yeah,
that's right.
There you go.
Yep.
Trey Mancini 2 for 3 with a home run in Sunday's game, I believe. Chris Bryant got a home run in that game. But, Mancini's another one of those guys. He changed the picture of the Cubs' first base situation, right? Like Hosmer was sort of one of those guys, was an expected signing, but when he came around and was the second signing, then you kind of step back and you reevaluated where you thought Mervis might be on this roster on opening day. So Ryan had a chance to speak with him at Arizona. We're going to break this down into 2 parts. So let's play the first part. This is Ryan's interview with new Cub Trey Mancini.
This is Ryan Herrera of CHGO Cubs. We're in Mesa, Arizona, and today I'm joined by Trey Mancini, new Cubs first baseman, DH, outfielder, whatever it is. First of all, Trey, how you doing today?
Great. How about you?
Very, very good. It's a sunny day. It's been a little windy to start spring training, but it's a good sunny day today.
Yep.
Number one, how is the first week and a half, 2 weeks gone for your first spring training with the Cubs?
It's been great. It's my first spring training being on a team other than the Orioles, actually. So, first experience on a new team other than getting traded last year, but it's been incredible. Everybody's made me feel at home from the start, and getting along with the guys great, and the staff's been incredible. Can't say enough.
What have you thought of all the additions the Cubs made? I know you were one of the later ones. Just as you maybe even prior to signing, seeing the guys they were bringing in, but now that you are here and around them, what have you thought of all the veterans or whoever it is that the Cubs have brought in this season?
It's been excellent. Been a lot of excellent additions, and it's great to be a part of that. I noticed what the Cubs did in the offseason even before I signed, and to be added to that group at the end was an honor because these guys are all total pros and have been around for a long time, and it's been such a great group.
You mentioned that this is obviously your first spring training, not with the Orioles, with a different team, right? But you did play for another team. You played for the Astros. Just going through that experience, post-trade deadline, we'll get on that, but post-trade deadline, going that World Series run with Houston, what was that like for you last season?
It was incredible. That's another team that really took me in with open arms right when I got there, made me feel at home, and I'm really thankful for my experience there, and getting to go through a playoff run and winning the World Series was incredible. It's why we all play the game. So to be able to experience that was a dream come true.
And what is maybe your biggest takeaway from that, whether it's, learning how to win at the big league level or being a veteran? Like, what was your biggest takeaway from that time what you had in Houston and making that run?
Yeah, it's just, those guys are so confident and so sure of themselves, and it rubs off on you even when you're struggling, which, I did offensively. After my first few weeks there, I had kind of a rougher time offensively, but at the same time, it got me ready to come into any spot, especially during the playoffs. We all were on the same page. The moment isn't too big for anybody there, and that rubs off on you big time.
So prior to the Houston, the trade with the Orioles, or from the Orioles to Houston, what, I guess, just was that experience, the leading up to the trade deadline, the trade happening, and just kind of that whirlwind kind of 24 hours and stuff?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to get traded or not because we were playing some really good baseball in Baltimore. We had just had a 10-game winning streak, and we're really trending up. So it was definitely bittersweet at the moment, but, something, again, that I'm thankful for that I got to experience, the playoffs, World Series. But yeah, I'd been in Baltimore for a long time, and I was kind of, one of the team leaders there and was the most tenured player. So it was, tough to leave in a way as far as, kind of leaving the guys. I had, gotten so close with so many guys on the team. But, I go to Houston and, again, felt so welcomed and got really close with all them really quickly. So, it was great to experience kind of both sides there.
Yeah, and leaving Baltimore was obviously – it had to be tough because that's where you went through so many things, and obviously the illness. It happened while you were in Baltimore, the ups and the downs. So how tough was it to leave Baltimore for you?
Yeah, I mean, I had such a strong connection with the city there, and the fans especially. I just always felt this special bond with there. They always really embraced me. I wasn't somebody that was a high draft pick or like the biggest prospect or anything like that, but they, always embraced me from the beginning of my career. So always felt such a good connection with them and with both regimes. The regime that drafted me, Dan Duquette and Buck Showalter was a manager, and then Mike Elias came in and Brandon Hyde was a manager, and I was close with them and had a great relationship with them too. So I just felt so lucky because I got to be around a lot of great people. But that hasn't changed at all, even as I moved on from the Orioles. Baseball is a great game because of the people you meet, and it's been great getting to meet a lot of different people from a lot of different places.
And so now, flash forward to the end of the year, you signed with the Cubs. What, I guess, was the sort of plan, or what did Jed and Carter and whoever it was say to you and the plan they laid out to entice you to sign with the Cubs?
I took notice before I even signed with what they were doing, the direction the team was going, and it just seemed like a fun group to be around. I, didn't even have to, I'd say, like, be pitched or anything like that. Who doesn't want to be a Chicago Cub? What an opportunity, what a team to play for, what a city to play for. I have a lot of family connections and friend connections in Chicago too, so it's going to be really neat to play there.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you take out of that first segment is, one, why did that truck have to show up next to your table, Ryan? And number two,
Christ.
he just comes across, having never met Trey Mancini, he comes across as a super nice guy who has faced adversity and is facing adversity with a new team now, right? Like, he went through cancer treatment. He bounced back to be comeback player of the year. And then he got this opportunity to compete for a World Series with the Astros. And when it happened, he ran out of gas. He struggled in the postseason. And now it's on to a new chapter. I don't want to compare him to Wilson Contreras, but it's a guy who was with one system and now has to go try and jumpstart his career, if you will, again with another team. He was good last year, but the main thing I took from it is he just seems like a good guy who is very thankful for everything he has right now.
Yeah, well, first, Barbara says in the chat, looks like a very good athlete. I'm not sure that if she was talking about Trey Mancini or me.
Right.
But,
because of the shirt. Like,
obviously.
Yeah.
It could be.
It was gun show for Ryan in that.
Yeah.
So like everything you said, Luke, it seems spot on for Trey. You always hear great things about him just coming from Baltimore, even his time in Houston, just like good veteran clubhouse presence. Now for one thing, he brings that, like, he knows how to win at the big league level, even though he did struggle in his time with Houston, being around all those guys that eventually made it and won the World Series. Like now he understands as a team how to do that, right? Like that's some experience he can bring to Chicago for a lot of these young guys that haven't gone through that. So that's one main thing. But just you think to like, you know, surviving cancer, getting through all, you know, the illnesses and stuff. Like, I mean, I've never personally gone through it, obviously, but like that has to change your perspective on things. Just going through that kind of stuff. And that's not to say that Trey Mancini wasn't a genuinely nice guy before. But it feels like that kind of stuff has given him a new perspective on like just helping guys, like being able to use his own personal experiences to help guys on or off the field. So you bring all that together, and he seems like a very genuinely nice guy, a great guy for the clubhouse and for that culture that the Cubs are building. So you can just tell just from some of the answers he gave, but he genuinely wanted to be here. He's excited to be here, and now he's going to bring that stuff, you know, all that intangible stuff that he brings. He'll take that into that clubhouse, and the hope for the Cubs is that helps lead to building this culture and the obviously competitive team that they want. I think it's he's a great fit with what the Cubs are trying to build right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think by the end of the year, I think Trey Mancini, when we look back at the free agent signings and see how they did in year one, I think Trey Mancini might be the one that maybe we slept on a little bit, and he outperforms what we expect more than some of them. I mean, we all have some optimistic outlook on Cody Bellinger, and he has a higher ceiling. But I'm saying is just as far as, you know, becoming a fan favorite and producing solid numbers and helping this young team grow. And I think he brings a lot of those intangibles that don't show up in the box score. And, you know, like, yeah, he had great seasons in Baltimore. And then his second half with Houston wasn't exactly great. I didn't really like, as far as offense, didn't play a big role in them winning the World Series, but you can't tell me that his presence in that clubhouse didn't mean something, or, you know, just the type of person that he is didn't mean something. So I think that, especially with the fact that he basically grew up a Cubs fan too, I think he'll really gravitate to this fan base, especially if he starts off the season hot and, you know, just, you know, gets back to what we're used to seeing him do over the course of his career. So it helps that he's a really good dude too. I really do think he could be one of the biggest fan favorites for the Cubs this year.
Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, I was going to say too, I think it came up during the convention, just the number of guys that they brought in this offseason with like serious postseason experience. There's a lot of playoff experience on this roster, you know, from a variety of different teams. But that's the kind of thing, especially for some of these young guys that we're hoping to be counting on down the stretch, to have a guy like Mancini in your clubhouse. That's huge. And yeah, it helps that he seems like a really good dude. I do think I'm with you guys. I think Cubs fans are going to love this guy. Just because of, not only because of how I expect he's probably going to play, but just the kind of person that he is. And we see a little bit of that in this interview. But yeah, I keep coming back to there's a lot of playoff experience on this roster, and that's a good thing.
All right, let's get to part two of the interview, Ryan, with Trey Mancini, and also the truck that pulled up next to the table.
What, I guess, from the end of the season through the offseason, what were kind of some of the things that you wanted to – was there anything you wanted to tweak or change over the offseason? I know there's a little bit of a struggle right there at the end of the season for you at the plate, but just going into the offseason and now going into spring training, what changes have you made, if there are any, to kind of help you kind of get back to who you could be?
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of out of sorts there, searching a little bit too much. You know, not a place you want to be when you're a hitter, so I just wanted to get back, you know, to thinking less, being relaxed at the plate. You know, that's the name of the game for me. I just got to feel like I'm kind of just chilling and hanging out up at the plate. And yeah, it's just about having as little go through your head as possible. So it's just simplifying and, you know, working in the middle of the field, not thinking too big. I want to, you know, kind of have that right center gap in my head every time that I'm up there. And and adjusting to anything else.
No, Houston was a little. It kind of maybe it helped you a little bit, but when you were in Baltimore, the new left field, did that sort of affect you at all while you were there?
You know, I it was no secret that I wasn't a fan of it. You know, I let that be known last year, but you know, as a player, you can't let that affect you as a hitter. You know, it is what it is. The wall got moved back. You know, it stinks. You know, Mountcastle and I didn't love it last year, but it helped the team out, helped the pitchers out a lot. It really changed the dynamic of playing at Camden Yards. It went from a hitter's park to a big-time pitcher's park. So, and it boded well for the team last year. But yeah, it was a big change. It was a big change.
Okay. So what, coming in, obviously the Cubs have a new hitting coach in Dustin Kelly. What's kind of been the message from him? What has it been like to work with him in his first year running this team in the hitting department?
It's been incredible. Yeah, he and Wash both. You know, I feel like have already like knew who we all kind of were before we got here. Like they definitely did their homework, and you know they're so good about letting us be us, and especially as an older guy, you know what makes you successful, and you just communicate that to them, and they really help you get there. You know, they know the cues that we all like when we hit, and they're just always so approachable, ready to work, and you know, willing to help you out in any way. So it's been great.
What are you hoping to accomplish? Maybe if it's the rest of spring training or the beginning of the season, like what are you sort of hoping to accomplish as you kind of begin your Cubs career?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking to go and really be a huge contributor for this team, you know, and you know, it's just preparing every day, doing little things, and you know, as you get older, you know, you don't have to go 100 miles an hour from day one. You know, you can kind of feel it out and ramp it up as spring goes on. So, you know, especially once the games start, that's going to kind of teach you what you need to work on, and you know, it's just all the feels at the plate that you have, good and bad. You just kind of want to kind of take notes and make the adjustments accordingly.
I got two more for you. Number one, what was your you've been to Chicago a couple times in your career. What's been your favorite part of Chicago?
Oh my gosh, I've been to Chicago a million times. I'm trying to think of my favorite. Like when I was younger, I used to go. A lot of my friends used to live there. You know, we'd go out in Old Town sometimes. I remember there was a bar we used to go to called Stanley's, but I think it got shut down. Yeah, that was a good place, but I don't know why it closed down. Yeah.
Well, and my last one for Cubs fans who maybe don't know Trey Mancini that well, how could you describe yourself in 5 or less words?
Yeah, I'm going to put it all on the line. It might be more than five words, but yeah, I play hard, and you know, I want to win every day, and expect a lot out of myself, and you know, I'm going to give it my all every day.
I think it was a little more than 5 words.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for joining us today, Trey. This is Ryan Herrera of CHGO Cubs, signing out from Mesa, Arizona.
Ryan sticking it to him. 5 words or less.
I tried, man. I tried. I keep him on his toes. Keep him on his toes. But I'm glad he gave me more than 5 words.
Yeah, I mean, I
really I said 5 words or less because I had someone there telling me to wrap it up, and
yeah, I get
that's
it.
All right.
I do think not only have the Cubs added veteran guys that have been there and won it, but they've added veteran guys that are great for the young players to learn from. Not just because of the adversity, just because they're willing to teach younger players. And that includes Kyle Hendricks, who's going there and teaching by example and has always been on the team, right? But Kyle has made it pretty clear that he's an open book, that anybody wants to pick his brain. Adbert Alzolay was the first guy to say, you know what, I go over there and talk to him all the time. Steele wants to listen, or Keegan Thompson was saying he was talking to him about stuff. I think they have a good mix of players who may not be, when you go back 10 years from now, you might not say, yeah, this guy had a 10-year run with the Cubs. They may not be those guys, but it doesn't mean they can't have a major impact on the rebuild of the organization. I think they've picked a lot of guys that could be very good in that role. And so I don't know how long Mancini's going to be a Cub, but I like what I hear from him. And when I watched him yesterday, I like what I see from him too. He's been a good baseball player, and they need those.
That's a good point. Is like you think about that's the last time the Cubs won, you know, when they won the World Series, but just like the end of that rebuild, and like some of those veteran guys that they picked up that didn't seem like the biggest signings, but eventually help them get where they needed to be. Like Dexter Fowler's one guy, Miguel Montero. Those are veteran guys. John Lackey's another one. Guys that they brought in who weren't the biggest free agents, right? But now, but when they got there, they brought that kind of veteran mentality and helped, especially when you have, like last time they had all the core guys were young players just debuting the last few years, right? The Cubs are somewhat in a similar position now where a lot of the guys they're counting on have obviously not as much time in the big leagues. So you're bringing in these veteran guys that have done it for a long time and mostly successfully. That's just that added experience. Like you're talking about guys like Adbert Alzolay, Justin Steele can go pick those guys' brains of like, hey, how have you done this for so long? Well, what do I need to do to make sure I'm doing this at a high level for this, for as long as you've done it? Like that's all so important. And they're not going to be the guys that lead the Cubs to a World Series specifically on the field. But they, again, develop that kind of culture and just that atmosphere that gets the Cubs there. If it does happen again, I'm not going to predict the World Series right now, but if it does happen again, like part of that is going to be these veteran guys coming in and helping to establish that culture and that atmosphere.
I see Fernando with the super chat. Appreciate the happy birthday. He says, now get off my lawn. I will do.
Yes.
And Michael Collada points out everybody's happy when they're in first place. Everyone's positive. Complaints start after they lose their first game. Well, yeah, that's how things go. That's how we roll. Maybe not the first game, but the second game. If they lose the second game, then I'm mad.
I'm trying to think back to the first loss last year and how I reacted, but I think it was over the weekend. So
it was.
So I might have not reacted to that.
Did they lose the game when they plunked McCutcheon?
No, they won that game.
No, they won that game.
They won the
Remember
first
last
two.
year they won 2 of 3 against Milwaukee to start the year.
Yeah. But I think a lot of that has to do with expectations going into the season too. I mean, last year nobody was going into the Cubs season with real high expectations. I think this year, for the first time in a little while, it kind of feels like, we might have something here. I don't think anybody's getting too out over their skis about it, but it does kind of feel like there's some potential here for the first time in a little while. So yeah, we might see some bigger reactions to that first loss when the time comes, or the first time they get swept or something like that we all know happens during the season, and in the grand scheme of things, we know isn't a big deal, but it's still in the microcosm. It's always like, especially that first one, seems a lot worse than it is.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say about Mancini is just that he's not the only veteran guy that has a great reputation coming in. Tucker Barnhart has a great reputation as being that guy too. And when we talked to him at Cubs convention, it was, he had already reached out and been throwing with guys at Wrigley Field just the weekend of Cubs convention. And then he called every single pitcher and was like, what do you want? What do you want to throw? How do you want to throw it? What situations do you want? He was having those conversations back the minute that he signed with the team. And Hosmer's another guy. Hosmer and Mancini, I've never heard around baseball at a ballpark, I've never heard anybody say anything negative about either guy. Fans might be disappointed with a performance or a season or statistics, but you'll never hear a teammate, one of their former teammates, say a negative thing about him. And Tucker's the same way. Like, they're known as pros and both known as leaders too. So I like the mix of players the Cubs have going into the season. Whether that means making the playoffs or not, I don't know, but I do like the mix of players that they have.
Yeah,
I think
there's little.
Sorry, go ahead, Jared.
I was just going to say there's little things too. Like I remember at the convention, I think it was Ian Happ was talking about when Dansby Swanson came, and Ian was giving him a tour of the locker room and asked him, or Dansby was asked, like, where do you want your locker? Kind of being given the opportunity to take a prime spot in the locker room, and Swanson's answer was like, nah, put me wherever. To me, like, even little things like that, that's, where are this guy's priorities? He's not coming in, even though he's like the big signing the offseason, he doesn't show up acting that way. And in the same way as like we've talked about with Tucker Barnhart, Trey Mancini, and, I think you see little things like that are character revealing. It shows you what kind of a guy that is. And I like the personalities that they're assembling, because it does feel like a team that is going to be pretty easy to rally around a singular kind of a goal.
Yeah. I with Mancini and Barnhart and all these like vets, I don't know what the ceiling we should put on them as far as like wins for the Cubs, but they definitely bring some much needed experience to a young roster, and they can be very beneficial for the bigger prospects that'll probably come up next year, like Alcantara or PCA, and the list goes on and on. But I mean, even you mentioned Barnhart. I mean, he bought those watches after the no-hitter or whatever for Rossi and I think Hottovy, and then some of the pitchers as well. Like I can't remember. I think there are more Spider-Man watches. So like, it's little things like that. It's just like, okay, this. Like, I'm not trying to jump ahead, but this is like big 2015 vibes, man. Like, I'm not trying to get too excited about it, but it really is like those kinds of things remind me of 2015. So, again, I'm trying to temper expectations and excitement because it is the spring, but I do love, like Luke said, I do like the vets that they brought in, and Mancini just, he just seems like a genuine dude. And I'm excited to see what he can do. And he's probably going to get more at bats to start the year now with Seiya out. Yeah. I don't know where, because I know he's not the greatest corner outfielder as far as advanced stats say. But, he can play it. It's just I think it'll be an adventure for him out there if that's where the Cubs start him off the year.
Especially right field at Wrigley.
In April, yeah.
That's a tall order.
So, like, it's going to be interesting to see how they go about that. And, I'd rather see him play, first or DH. And if he does play outfield, more so left field if they want to DH Ian Happ for a day or give him a day off. But, we'll be interesting to see. But, as far as getting him more at bats to start the year, I think that's the one pro of it.
Yeah, I see Niren says #we are nice. Hey, that's not a bad thing. And don't temper your excitement, Cody, because that's why we love you. Your excitement, your vibes are always more optimistic than the rest of us a lot of times. And frankly, there hasn't been a reason to have positive vibes going into a season for a little while. So if you've got them right now, don't feel bad. Don't apologize for them. We can do that 3 months into the season if we need to. And I'm sure we will if we have to. Speaking of positive, you want to be
Cody,
positive.
You're not the only one, for the record.
That's right.
I'm getting those 2015 vibes too.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have 2015 vibes, but I feel better about this team than I did last year's team. I can tell you that much for sure. Chicago have already got you covered with the best coverage for your favorite teams. Now get fitted out with the best sports gear around. Foco has you covered from Soldier Field to the fan cave in your basement, north side, south side, hoodies, slippers, signs, bobbleheads, everything in between. You can get decked out like DeMar with apparel from the leader in sports merch and collectibles, Foco. If you're looking for that perfect gift for your football fan in your life, or maybe you're looking for an opening day hoodie, Foco's got you covered. Fight that Lake Michigan breeze with some warm clothes, maybe a knit cap. Maybe you just want to get that favorite bobblehead you've been looking for. Check out Foco.com. Click the link in the description below for all non-presale items. Use the promo code CHGO for 10% off. Now, I just want to point out that while everybody says, these guys aren't looking for special treatment, Jared mentions Dansby Swanson. He just wants a regular locker. I'm much more petty than that. And I'm a little disappointed that I haven't received any lavish gifts for my birthday yet. It's okay for you guys to just go say happy birthday to me, but I want lavish presentation. That's what I'm looking for. So tomorrow, bring the boxes, bring the ribbons, bring the gifts. I expect big things tomorrow out of you guys.
We'll get you a Mario Kart watch.
Anybody can say happy birthday. I expect gifts that cost lots of money.
I'm going to bring you a whole box of Do-Right donuts.
Ooh.
No, I can't do that. Let me tell you. You know what I had for breakfast this morning? I had homemade brownies, and then there was a bowl of
Oh,
frosting left over from buttercream frosting that my wife made, and I was just taking spoonfuls of it. So the 2023 eating right diet pauses on your birthday. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it's
definitely.
Okay.
over the weekend too. I ate complete garbage over the weekend, and I'm gonna shut it down after today. And then because my birthday falls in between weekends, then next weekend I'm going to continue it a little bit as well. But
Look at
today
Mike
I will continue
Dubs.
to eat garbage.
Yeah, I
Look
was
at
going
Mike
to
Dubs.
Dubs
Mike
coming in
Dubs.
big.
This
The
is
goat.
this is for
Look at-
Stucky
see,
or for
there's
all
your-
of us. I don't know.
Now, see,
Speaking
that's
of
a lavish.
lavish,
Dubs has the
That's
that's a
lavish.
lavish gift. A $49.99 super
Yeah.
chat.
He's
Love
trying to
it,
get you to go
Dubs.
to London. He's trying to
Yeah,
get you
this
to
is a-
London. That's
That's
this
right.
is a good man right here.
Mike Dubs, not only did he send me a Twitter happy birthday, he backed it up with the cash, $49.99. Mike Dubs
Look at
for that super chat deserves to have his name called out in the chat for the next 49 straight shows. 49 straight shows. I mean, that shouldn't be $49 for one show. I should have to read 2 or 3 of his comments per
All right.
show now.
It's
Yeah,
March
put that on
6th,
record.
so 49 in the next 49 days. I'm
Whatever
not a
that
math
equals out
guy,
to.
but that seems like at least till the end of April.
That's that's a long time.
Colada says, happy birthday from the Ricketts family and Mike Dubs. Listen, so here's the deal. A lot of famous people have been born on March 6th. I noticed today that Jessica Biel is 41, not 51. Famous actress, right?
Yep.
Then I started thinking, well, some people know that born on the same day within just a few hours of each other, Shaquille O'Neal and I, same age, same birthday. And I got to thinking, Jake Arrieta, who's the best athlete actually born on March 6th? It's a poll that probably should be out on Twitter. Is it Shaquille O'Neal, Basketball Hall of Famer, Jake Arrieta, one of the greatest seasons in baseball history, former Cy Young winner, or is it, a guy who was on the reserves for the freshman B team at Prospect High School basketball? It could be anybody. There it is.
People are asking the question.
People have asked the question many times.
Lots
Sure.
of people are asking.
People
Thanks
want
for
to
the
know.
crown, Kevin.
Prospect is a big high school, so that's
right.
not nothing.
Yeah,
That's
you
not
can't
nothing.
count the numbers. And by the way, Prospect made it all the way to the sectional final this year for the first time since 91, almost just after I left high school. I knew those guys.
They
And
didn't win, did
they
they?
lost to Libertyville in the sectional
Yeah,
final.
that's what I thought.
Libertyville. But speaking of veteran players who have an impact that you see down the road, one could say that your presence on that freshman B team back then, the
That's right.
legacy is carried over.
That's
So the
right.
success that you're seeing now is basically a direct result of you.
Yeah, like 35 years later, my impact is still being felt. What is Cody trying to
That's-
show?
I made the
That's my
poll.
takeaway.
I just tweeted the poll.
Boom.
Best athlete
vote.
born on March 6th. And the options
right.
are Luke Stuckmeyer, Jake Arrieta, and Shaq.
I'd like
people
where's
are
that Twitter?
asking,
'Cause
so
I
we
want
have
to get
to find
I want to
out.
make sure I don't get 0% of the votes.
There's only 2 right answers. And that one.
But you mentioned March, Jared, and like Corey's birthday was yesterday. Greg Boyson's birthday was yesterday. Everybody's March.
It's a great month.
And CHGO.
And
CHGO's
That's
birthday.
Chicago's
in March.
birthday.
Yep, Chicago's birthday. 186th, right? So
Yeah.
I gotta.
So
Hey, thanks to
look,
Mike Dubs. How about that? $49.99.
Yeah.
I feel so special seeing it. So lavish.
you asked for
We've
we've
lavish.
had great
There you go.
birthdays for CHGO Cubs. Delmetrics became a thing on my
Yeah.
birthday. We got the Morel Homer on my birthday. And then this
Oh,
past
yeah.
weekend with Stucky eating sweets, and now we're getting
Mm.
$49.99 from Mike Dubs. Corey found himself a girl. I mean, look at all of us. We're just doing great things.
Brownies for breakfast. It's a beautiful thing. Let me tell you. You can't do it very often, but it was good. All right. It's time for our Monday overreaction to weekend baseball. And that's always stock up, stock down. Nick Madrigal, a lot of third base. We already talked about Drew Smiley. Don't put too much into it, although one of the home runs he gave up was to Chris Bryant. But Nick Madrigal, 2 for 3, leadoff spot. Is it an overreaction, or is Nick Madrigal winning over guys like Cody Delmendo, because we know he's already won over one Ryan Herrera.
People are saying,
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of talking about it off air with our producer Kevin today, and I'm just happy with whatever he brings. I know he's not going to play every day, and I know he's not going to play third base every day. And I know the Cubs, I know Marquee keeps pushing it, and David Ross has nothing but positive things to say about it, but I'm just not going to believe it until I see it. That's just how I feel about it. But I will say that he's looked better at third base than we all expected. He just isn't the prototypical player to play at third. And that's the thing. That's the only thing that holds me back on believing that he could be the Cubs' everyday third baseman, But we've seen it. He does provide value in some aspect. He can hit. And, if he can play a little third every now and then when you need him to, or, the Cubs going to play kind of how we talked about last month or 2 months ago after the Cubs convention, where we talked about, I think, when Javi Baez was on the Cubs, sometimes they would put him at third base because they were trying to hide a flaw in their defense with certain hitters. If a team put heavy right-handed hitters up, then they would put Javi at third because he was their best defensive infielder. Now, this would be the opposite, where they put Madrigal in at third if if it's a heavy left-handed hitting lineup, you know what I mean, something like that. I don't know. I'm just saying that he's not a lot of people think this guy's just bad, and I don't think he just hasn't had the opportunity to tell us if he's bad or good.
Yeah.
He just can't stay on the field. If he can stay on the field and provides a solid bench bat, you need a guy to get on base when you're down a run, or if it's a tie game late in the game. Who else would you want up there given the type of player that he is? I mean, I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it. Nick Madrigal would have been a great player for the Cubs during the golden era. They needed a guy like Nick Madrigal during the golden era. So all that said, again, the Cubs are going to have to make some cuts in the infield. I'm not saying they should cut the guy, but I'm also not against them trading him either. I think anything that we've seen from the guy this spring that's good is only good for the Cubs in terms of if he stays on the team, or if they can trade him for a pitcher or a right fielder if this thing with Seiya gets worse. I don't know. So that's how I feel. It's better than seeing him suck, right?
Well,
Sure.
I think, the main thing, like you said, is we haven't had a chance to see how good he is or is not. We don't really know, and I don't think it's smart for anybody to say at this point, that we know what kind of a player he is, because his main issue has always been he can't stay on the field. He doesn't, it's been health. He might turn out to be a really great option for third base or for the infield just in general. But the question for me is going to be, can this guy stay healthy? And until I see that over the long term, I'm not putting much into Nick Madrigal either way, that it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just right now, stay healthy so we can see you on the field and see you perform and see if you actually can be the kind of hitter that we think you could be.
Yeah.
And
That's the
speaking
big
of health, Barbara wants us all to keep our health up. She says, please keep up your dietary fiber, which is sound advice.
Thank you.
Sound advice. All brand for everybody after the show, after our brownies.
We also got another super chat.
One more.
Yeah, Fernando. $9.99 coffee on and him, and also name dropping Dubs again. Fernando is always coming through with the big chats.
I don't know.
That's
Fernando
a
and
total
Dubs
of
are our guy.
$11 today. I mean, shout out to Fernando.
Thank
you, Fernando. I
Fernando's right at the top of the,
Do
the
we
chat
mention
rankings.
Fernando for 11 days now? Just 11
we
straight
should.
days?
We should.
Yep.
All right, write it down.
There you go.
So thanks for the birthday shout out and the lavish gifts on the super chats. Appreciate both of those. Thanks to Jared for jumping on today. Thanks to everybody. Yes, best athlete ever born on March 6th. Cody has the important poll out there for
It's
you.
on Twitter.
It's on Twitter. Please make sure I get my support because I need support at this age.
For sure.
Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by DraftKings. Don't forget to download the app. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. For Ryan, Cody, Jared, everybody, Kevin, running the ones and twos back there. Thanks for checking us out. And until Tuesday at 1:20, fly the W.